Good evening and welcome to Leadership Conversation from Etoile, Europe. And I really want to welcome all our friends, our network associates, partners from all around the world. I welcome you to tonight. All the early bird people who have logged in right as we're coming on ground. I can see some people logging in already. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And also please invite friends, share the link, with your friends, with associates, with colleagues, with your staff, wherever you are. Just share it in your network, either on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, wherever. Just share the link as well. And for those who have not yet joined, subscribe to the channel, please do subscribe and press the notification bell as well so that you can get alert, especially when we come on here like this. So it's such a great honor to come into your space again tonight with Leadership Conversation, and I want to welcome everyone as you're joining in tonight. We welcome you from Africa, from Europe, from the Caribbean, from the United States, from all around the world. As many that will be joining us tonight, it's such a great honor to be back on this broadcast tonight. And as you know, we've been on a discussion, on a journey with leadership in Africa, and we're focusing more on developing nations and using Africa as a context for our discussion, knowing fully well, look, if we can get leadership right, then our developing nations have hope. Then we can, we can predict some of the things that are going to happen there. However, we don't want to leave it to chance. So we are part of those contributors to actually helping, advising, consulting, prescribing, some solutions amongst many other people who are doing wonderful, wonderful things in that space as well. So it's a great honor to serve you from this network tonight. And tonight, I have two fantastic guests who are going to be joining us. You're used to them, you know them, and I know they've been such a great, value added to our broadcast on this space, leadership conversation, and so they're going to be, looking at this topic tonight from another dimension as well. I want to look at what we can also add, to that space, especially within the developing world as well. So if you're just joining us as well, please welcome here tonight. And I'm your host tonight. My name is JD Madede, and I'm the Etoile Regional Ambassador for Europe as well. So tonight, let me bring in my first guest. As a man that you know very well, the leadership catalyst himself. Is an author, is a leadership coach, is a mentor, is one of our directors on Etoile. Is being a mentee of a founder, the great Dr. Miles Monroe. It's a speaker. He does a whole lot of wonderful things. I think one of the things I just love about Ambassador Yemi is writing. And you got to pick up some of his material, and you really will be so blessed. So please join me tonight to welcome Ambassador Yemi Akisiwaju. Please, Ambassador Yemi, good evening.
Thank you so much for that warm, tremendous welcome. I'm truly honored for,
Thank you.
Sometimes when you give me this kind of introduction, I want to turn around and meet myself too and say,
it's still the same you were talking about.
But thank you so much. And I do permit me to add my thanks to all the people who have taken the time really to be with us tonight. I always say that the greatest gift you can give anyone is the gift of your time, because it's the only thing that's totally irreplaceable. And so because they have chosen to share this space and time with us, we are truly honored, and we're certainly hoping that it will be of tremendous value to you, and you'll walk away from this session with us having been inspired and empowered and equipped really to be the change that you want to see in the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Great. And also we have tonight, I think she's backstage just getting ready with the tech people there. And oh my God, the last session we had, which was about 2 weeks ago, Reverend Celia Collins, my God, it was just the whole last 2 weeks, people have been coming back to us, the comments from the broadcast, loads of comments, and I told you, I promised that she was going to be back. So she's going to be back with us tonight yet again, Reverend Celia, Collins is going to be. So this is a double barrel one. And I tell you, when I have these two people, she's also part of our trustees in Ituala, served as a mentee, served also the board with Dr. Miles Monroe, traveled extensively without doing a lot of work on leadership within government context, within politicians, within church. She's there. She's here in the UK, major voice, within the leadership space as well. So tonight we're going to be having Reverend Celia Collins as well join us once she just finishes within the tech space. But while she's doing that, we're going to go on. But by the way, Ambassador Yemi, the last 24 hours or more, we lost the wife of one of our founding fathers, who was also being the chaplain and the father and the covering over Ituala itself. And that's his Dr. Jerry Honor, the wife of Dr. Jerry Honor, which is Annie Honor. And we'll just take 1 minute, silence just to honor our head before we go on tonight. And we pray that may a gentle soul rest in peace, that she be received, back to headquarters, just at the bosom of the King. Great parents over our group, over our organization. We really honor Dr. Jerry Honor. Yeah, great. Ambassador Yemi, where are we going tonight? Now, we're still on this discussion on Africa, leadership in Africa. And you must have listened to Reverend Celia last 2 weeks, and last week we did a replay of the broadcast as well. Now, and today, look, this is the thought, and I was chatting with Reverend Celia earlier as well. Current deficiency, we know there's a deficiency. I don't think they need to tell us that. If they're telling us that, then we're not being honest with ourselves. Okay. Yeah. So, and that is why, I came up with something today that definitely there's a correlation between deficiency and developing. So if you're deficient, you're going to have a development problem. Now, I didn't think about that. That just dropped in my spirit right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. We know. Let's just accept that. We know, and don't waste anybody's time. We know we have a deficiency in leadership in the developing nations. Now, with deficiency, please, because sometimes people do not even know. We got to first understand the problem before we can prescribe a solution. Okay. So, and sometimes people don't want to really admit their problems, admit that they have a problem. So we help them admit that we have a problem. And we literally show it to them, so that people that might not want to believe that we have a deficiency in leadership, we have a deficiency, but tell us, or just in a few minutes, the impact of the deficiency in our leadership in developing nations, using Africa as a context.
Well,
I throw the ball in your court.
Thank you ever so much. Well, as you rightly pointed out, it is clear that we have some major deficiencies in our leadership experience in Africa. And it certainly has been the bane of the continent over the last 60 years. I guess in a way, it reflects the truism that there is a major distinction between independence and freedom.
Oh my God, where you're going tonight, that is a deep end. You just
a lot of our nations in Africa claimed independence from the colonial masters. Unfortunately, they did not transition into a place of effective freedom. And the kind of freedom we're talking about is a freedom to be all that we are called to be. The freedom to become all that we are capable of becoming as a people. So we transitioned from being colonized, as it were, and we're kind of stuck in limbo as a continent between that colonization phase and really stepping into the fullness of our expression as free people. Wow. So, and I think that is really what we're looking at right now, where our nations are now looking to make that final leap from the mental, psychosocial shackles that have held our continent bound to now stepping into really what we're capable of being as a people. Because the truth of the matter is this, when you take Africans and you take them into other spheres, we excel. You know, you go into America,
that's true.
You meet Africans in America who are excelling. You go into the UK as an example. You come into the National Health Service, permeated doctors and nurses with expertise, unique expertise, basically filling the National Health Service in the UK, the Public Health Service in the UK. And you go into other nations around the world, it's the same thing. So the question then becomes, why can't we harness these same capabilities that we have in these nations where we go to back in our own continent? And that reflects the issue of the leadership deficiency that we have. So it's almost as if when we return back, or when people are back in our country, because many of our leaders, our political leaders, are people who studied abroad.
Yes.
They go to other nations, they know what happens in those nations. So
and they come back and do nothing.
And do nothing. And so I think that is the place where we're at right now, where as a people collectively in Africa, I think the last time we spoke, one of the things that we emphasized is that or in a way, we need to de-emphasize a reliance on political leadership.
De-emphasize.
Exactly.
Reliance
on political leadership. And reignite a focus, a passion on personal leadership, personal responsibility, so that those individual choices and decisions we are making at a grassroots level begin to cascade upwards to impact our society.
That means all of us need to be involved in this.
All of us, absolutely.
Everyone playing a part, taking responsibility rather than waiting for the government or waiting for political leaders.
Totally agree.
Oh my God, this is a prescription.
It's where we need to begin to look at, okay, how do we develop civic leadership? How do we develop a new paradigm in our approach to leadership within Africa? How do we develop a new context? In fact, one of the things I've been looking at in the last few months is, as individuals, as business leaders, as leaders in schools, as leaders in our families, what is our code of honor by which we operate? What is our personal code of honor? What is our organizational code of honor? That we say, okay, these are the values and the standards by which we live. Okay? And we not only enforce them personally, but we also enforce them in our local community.
Let me interrupt you just for a minute. You're going to come back to that. Sometimes I see, in fact, most institutions, most organizations that I've seen maybe in Africa, they don't even have stated or visible values, because you can't have values that are not visible. Your values must be visible so that people can hold you accountable to it. I'm going to come to accountability later, but also we need to teach these values to even our children, make it public so that everybody literally knows what we hold as value. And it looks like it's absent. I don't see it in most of those places. So re-emphasize on that place.
Yeah, you see, you make a very great point. And it reflects one of the, I think, challenges in our thinking about leadership. One of my philosophies of life is this: you have no right to demand of your leader that which you are not willing to demand of yourself.
Oh my God. You have no right to demand of your leader what
That
you
which
are
you are
not
willing to
willing.
demand of yourself.
My God.
And
Okay.
so we find ourselves in a position where many people are making claims on what the president ought to do,
Do
what the senator ought to do.
while they do nothing. While they themselves do nothing.
Absolutely, you know,
Okay. Okay.
absolutely. And yet you find out that many of the experiences that we have,
Mm.
okay, that make us despair of the issues in our continent are not the issues that you like have the president does. When you get to the airport and a man demands that you have to pay a bribe before he will allow you through,
Oh my.
okay,
Oh
it's not the
my.
president who is doing that.
Oh my. Ambassador
He's
Yemi,
a
look,
man.
I was sharing with someone. I said, when I'm going to the airport, especially in Africa, okay, it's in context right now. There's some airports that they will not take that. There's some airports that just security,
Rampant.
there's security issue to the country. Once your airport is corrupt or your border is corrupt, your nation has been, insecure forever.
Compromised.
So,
Totally.
so it's already compromised. So I see some things happening in certain countries today. They say there's insurgents, there's all these things, but they have very porous borders where they can bribe their way through and things like that. I said, what do you expect? That has been there for ages. It's not this president that caused it. It's been an issue for all of us, and all of us feed into it as well.
Absolutely.
You know,
Hence, we need to come back to this understanding that you and I, every one of us, are responsible for the state of our nations.
great. Okay, let me pause there. So what Ambassador Yemi is saying right now is that one of the key things we got to understand for this deficiency in leadership to go away is that we can't just blame it on a group of people, on political leaders, on government. Every one of us must take responsibility. You talked about values as well. By the way, let me just welcome Reverend Celia.
Reverend
Fantastic.
Senior,
So
great to
nice to
see
have you.
you.
My,
Really
now,
honored to
having
have you.
two of you on this broadcast at the same time. Look, I need to just, actually, celebrate and tell everybody that I think my anointing has moved to the next level. Okay, now I'm gonna go right onto you, Reverend Celia, because I know this is one big thing for you on accountability and transparency, especially accountability. Because number one, people put values. One of the things I said was that number one, you can't put values in place that are not visible to others. That everybody knows these are the things that you value. So that they can hold you accountable. Not only that, people put values in place that they don't even reflect. They don't even talk about it. They don't even act on it. So, leadership in developing nations. What kind of tell us how can we have, because we don't make our leaders accountable for anything. They just do stuff and go away. In fact, I think it was with Ambassador Yemi I raised that issue that, oh no, it was with Professor Olajide when he came, one of our guests. I said there's a world criminal court or something like that, that we should be able to drag some of these leaders and wreck their countries, let us, to places to be able to go account and say, this is what we did. Or we hold them accountable and say, what did you do? If you don't perform in 100 days, in 6 months, in 1 year, do we keep on looking at you? Or we decide we want you out? So please
That's an
help us.
excellent question. And actually, thank you so much for having me on again, and just keying into what you and Ambassador Yemi was saying. I mean, I'd love to go back there when I've answered this question, because he took the words right out of my mouth. But you know what? Public servants are exactly that, servants who serve in the public view. It presupposes that they are serving the interest of another person and meeting the needs of those they serve. That means it is an entrustment, and everything that is an entrustment, you're accountable for. Our infrastructures and our political processes don't allow for accountability.
Whoa.
But the biggest blame is the people, because we do not hold people to account. See, public accountability is defined by Day and Klein as a social relationship in which an actor feels an obligation to explain and justify his or her conduct to some significant other. There is an obligation. When there's an obligation, there must be an enforcement.
So tell me, hold on. So you're saying really, okay, public servants, political leaders, whatever, they are supposed to account for whatever they're doing. However, on the flip side, the people themselves don't hold them accountable. So these guys are just able just to keep on doing whatever they want to do, and we keep on just learning and do nothing.
Yes. One of the things I was going to say is we talked. I mean, as was proposed, is that, you know what, we need leaders that restore confidence back in leadership.
Oh, man.
It is the reason people don't hold people to account, because we shrug and say, what's the point?
Yeah.
And so we have gotten used to it, whereas accountability must be institutionalized.
Yes.
And in order for it to complement public management. And when I talk about public management and public leadership, I'm not just talking about our political leaders. I'm talking about our economic leaders. I'm talking about our chiefs, our traditional leaders, our community leaders. In our system as Africa, our tradition teaches us that an elder is never wrong.
Let me just joke. I won't give too much information out. However, I was within a government circle, and one of the things we've been talking about in that circle, within one of the contexts of our countries in Africa, Nigeria for context, is that we need to really make good use of diaspora. What do you call it? Diaspora remittances. They want to plug into that diaspora remittances. Okay. We said that's no problem, because diaspora remittances in Nigeria, for example, is huge. It was in the, I think it's going to reach almost about $50 billion. Now,
it makes a difference to our GDP.
I'm telling you. Okay, now, okay, listen to this. So we now said, okay, we like to know you leaders that are going to take political office. So diaspora, we invite you, come and tell us what your program is. Can you imagine? They didn't show up. They stood us up. And they want our money, you know, but they don't want to answer to us and speak to us. I mean, we're not going to control. We just want to know what your vision is. We want to know who you are. We want to be able to tell you how we can support you, how we can help you. No.
Now, yes, how do we deal with that? That's something we're used to. So who holds them to account? Next time you will vote for them because you prefer to vote for your political party rather than. We need to hold them accountable for their acts, for their decisions, for their policies, and their expenditure. Listen, the difference between the West and Africa is that the West holds people accountable. A few years ago, Britain called to account members of the Legislative Assembly, parliamentarians and peers, House of Lords. We say, we give you taxpayers' money, explain your expenditure. Some are in prison today.
Yep. Yes. Okay, now.
Even though they held high public office. And the thing with Africa is that we must be prepared. There is no magic wand. There's got to be a period of process where these changes are made over a period of time, because we have not had transparency. Transparency is the means by which public leaders and public officers foster and position themselves in the manner in which they serve their duties and tasks to ensure accountability. So accountability is one thing, but we do not have transparency with any government, with any process. And I'm saying this, I hope you're listening to me. It's part of the infrastructure of how we live. Hear me. Elders are never wrong.
Now that's a cultural issue. That's a bad.
And I'm telling you that for Africa to change, to blossom and become everything that we ought to, we've got to address some cultural issues, because the culture is interwoven into public life. Yep. And so who are you going to question? And that is residual at the back of our minds always. So even when the thing is going wrong, even when you have to address it, you have to dress up your words.
And
do you understand what I'm saying? And so I feel that part of our problem is that culture is interwoven. And if we do not allow, somebody once said this, in the kingdom of glass, everything is transparent and there's no place to hide the dark heart.
That's right.
Public leaders live in a kingdom of glass. We should continue with public scrutiny. We don't. As soon as they satisfy us a little bit, we shut up. This is part of the reason that transparency is important. It allows us, the recipients of our service, of their service, to ensure that we're on track with objectives that were set. So if there's no transparency and accountability, how are we going to know that objectives that were set before are on track? We do not know. It creates trust. The more transparent a leader is, there's trust. And why is trust important? Because Africans keep shrugging. Right now, we've given up. And so I was
somebody give a comment. Hold on.
Yes.
Somebody give a comment. Transparency in Nigeria.
Well, no, but
this is where we got to go.
Interesting thing though, to build on
can I finish the point? I just wanted to finish a couple of points. Okay, so it's to create trust. A lack of transparency results in mistrust. When there's the glue that holds any relationship together is mistrust. Africans are not trying now. We've shrugged, we've given up almost in the transformation process. Frederick Knight said something very powerful. He says, I'm not upset that you lied to me. I'm upset that from now on, I can't believe you. Let me repeat that. I'm not upset that you lied to me. I'm upset that from now on, I can't believe you. And because from now I can't believe you, you cannot have my cooperation. And because you cannot have my cooperation, you cannot advance and I cannot advance. We're both in prison. The public is not ready to cooperate with public leaders because we don't trust them one inch.
Trust them anymore. Wow.
And I heard what you said. There is no way transformation can happen unless there is an all. We are going to need some visionary leaders. We're going to need transitional leaders. We're going to need transformational leaders.
No, hold on. I'm going to take one from you. We need visionary leaders. Okay, we need visionary leaders.
We need transitional leaders.
Okay.
And we need transformational leaders.
Transformational leaders. Okay. Now, Ambassador Yemi. So I got visionary leaders, transformational leaders, and transitional leaders, you said. Yeah. Leaders that can take us from one point to the other. Okay, Ambassador Yemi, what more do we need, please? And we've got to know how to track these things as well. You see, because one thing is that we have these issues in some of the developing nations. We need to know how do we deal with it, and we need to begin to also know how we follow it up as well. Okay, I'm listening to you.
Well, thank you so much. Reverend Silly has said so much, totally loaded.
Yeah.
I think what she said about this transitional leader really builds on very nicely on what we said just before she joined us, where we spoke about the fact that Africa, we're in this transitional phase where we're out of independence, as it were, but we haven't yet gotten into the place of freedom.
Freedom, yes.
And that really is the cadre of leadership that we all individually and collectively need to start building. Now, as she said, one of the things about transparency, particularly within the Nigerian context as an example, even when people know that someone has done wrong, for as long as there's personal benefit to themselves, then they don't care. See,
that's true.
And that lies at the heart of the problem. Because collectively, our value system has been so eroded
compromised
that we're not willing to call to account people who are doing what is wrong. So the question then becomes, how do we reorientate our nations? We need a complete paradigm shift.
Thank you. Somebody just commented as well and said our mindset. Our mindset is one key area. Professor, Vice Chancellor from Nigeria. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, put it this way. What can we do practically? I think I love one of the phrases that our mentor used many years ago. He said, look, he said, we know that the political leadership, the leaders at the top, they have these issues. He said, but what we do is we engage with them whilst we train their replacements.
Oh, we engage with those who are within political, within leadership, whatever position of leadership that you are, we engage with them, okay, in their dysfunction, and we begin to train their replacement. Fantastic.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Can I feed into that?
Please feed into it.
So I love the idea that, of course, we have to engage with them as best as we can. And we engage by bringing solutions, not tolerance. We engage by bringing solutions, not tolerance. Yeah. It's too expensive to tolerate. But again, and I totally, 100%, my brother has spoken how to develop. The reason I said we need visionary leaders, we're going to have visionary leaders who see into the next 20 years, 30 years, because the kind of leaders that you develop have to come out of that. Otherwise, we're just going to have more of the same. We need incubation centers that are not just developing political leaders. They are developing bankers. I haven't even gone into industry yet. We don't have time to go there. Part of Africa's problem is that we have not industrialized our natural resources.
Reverend Celia, hold on. Reverend Celia, let me take you back to this visionary leadership. You see, the things that I've seen across Africa generally, and I'm using that as the context for developing nations, is that people generally in leadership positions do not cast vision. They will come up with an agenda. They come up with one program, and all those things are not vision. So people do not really know the impact and the importance of vision. So they tell us, I'm going to build you roads. I'm going to do, that is not a vision.
No, those are objectives, they are goals. So a visionary leader has to look to create vision. You have to look at context in which we live. We have to look at context in which the world is emerging. And you can now give us vision. This is our 10-year, 15, 20-year vision, because what you do in the nation is going to be authored by the vision. It's going to be informed by the vision. The kind of leaders that we had yesterday, it's not the kind of leaders we need today. Today is a fast-changing world. So you cannot have a leader that is set in their ways. You got to have somebody that's flexible and adaptable and so on and so forth. So because Africa's problem is not just our values, it's also our perspectives. It's I was thinking deeply about this. I'm like, I want a leader who's going to restore Africans to believe in themselves again. Hey, say it loud. I'm African and proud. We have because we have a drain. We talk that Africans are lazy. Africans lack ethics. Africans are this. But listen, we have a brain drain. That is very serious. We were talking about diasporans remitting back. So we are happy with the kind of GDPs that are affected by the remittance in. But think about how the brain drain and all of the resources that go. And listen, we're all sitting here living in the West. When we came to the West, we are not lazy. We are effective. We are on top of our game. We have achieved something. We've been recognized publicly for achieving something. Yet the difference is this: I am still the same Celia P.J. Collins. When you took me out of one context and put me into another context, I blossomed. So I'm looking. Do you understand what I'm saying? We don't believe in ourselves anymore. Number one, we don't even see. The reason I said about perspectives is the lenses. We're looking at Africa and complaining. We don't have plans to maximize our natural resources. I'm so proud of Ghana because at some time ago, we used to import chocolate from Switzerland. Now, when you see Ghana,
talk to me about that chocolate.
You cannot tell the difference between Ghanaian chocolate. And in fact, you can tell the difference when you taste it. But even the way it looks and everything, because our president at some point said this, one district, one factory. So what it is the mindset of the nation has to go onto manufacturing. No nation can thrive unless it finds some resource to export, unless it finds some resources to depend on. So all of those things are make for visionary leadership. Where do we have? Where are we going? Where is the world going? How do we compete? How do we hold our own? We're going to need some people who just know. So a visionary leader doesn't necessarily have to know how to cause all of these things to happen, but at least give us hope, give us vision. Because vision causes me to discipline myself. Hope causes me to hold on and not gather everything today. Then sometimes a transitional leader comes whose job it is to know how to put things together, put the infrastructure in place. Now, I'm going somewhere with all of this. At some point, every one of those leaders were going to have to give up power for the other person to come.
Of course,
and
that's visionary.
So right now they are lying to us about democracy. We vote. Our vote doesn't count when you cheat. Okay, that's not democracy. All I did is I put a piece of ballot paper in a box. That's all. But if you recognize as a leader, I mean, I always admire Nelson Mandela.
Yes,
that was a great transitional leader. He understood his place in history, and he did it. So and then of course you need the transformation, and time doesn't allow me to go into that all that. So what I was trying to say is that as you develop leaders, it's not a mass factory. It's leaders who think contextually, leaders who think visionary, leaders. And so what plans do we have for industry? What plans do we have for banking? That doesn't mean we have to go to the IMF anymore. What plans do we have for what plans do we have for education? And we are raising educational leaders. We're raising people for health. You understand? We have a lot of herbs, okay? You know, and just changing. And that's what I'm trying to say, that leaders, the raising of leaders has to be wide. It has to reflect what Ambassador Yemi said, that it needs everybody's cooperation. Leader is as leader thinks. Leaders are not born, they are developed. Because we all have capacity. It's how a leader sees things. The difference between a leader and a follower is that we see differently and a leader acts differently. But if the educational system gives everybody a chance to think like a leader,
no. Education
in another
kills,
20 years, we can prophesy, if I may use that word, exactly what Africa is going to look like.
It's going to look like.
Thank you so much. Part of our educational system.
Absolutely. And I think that really, for me, lies at the heart of one of the points we were making earlier. What is our education system like right now? How is it structured to grow the kind of leadership that we need for the future?
That's right.
Unfortunately, most of our curriculum, as I say, there's no point in being prepared for a world that no longer exists.
That's right.
And that is the challenge that we're having now. When you look at some of the curriculum that we're finding out through many of our colleges in Africa, they are pretty much moribund.
The education system does not develop the leader in you.
Absolutely.
No,
it doesn't. And
so the education system is designed to pass exams.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's not designed for you to think, and it's not designed. I tell you something. I went to America before I was able to apply mathematics and other to study. Before I was able to apply them to my living every day. Do you get what I'm saying? I don't know about you, but we studied French, and it was just like we played games with the French, les chiens. You know, we didn't understand it. It was the way we were taught it, and so going back to the role of leaders is, it's visionary leaders, first of all, will sit down, look at what the future ought to look like and what is going to take. Therefore, public funds and investments will go in the right places.
In the right place.
Now, let me take you back on one of your points.
Go there.
Just before you joined, Ambassador Yemi was saying exactly something that you said as well. And he was talking about the fact that we are independent, but we are not free to becoming who we really are. And that's exactly what you picked on. We're not really, we're not so proud of ourselves being African and being able to showcase that African concept of who we are. We keep on importing all these different things that has complicated our whole system, education, government, everything is imported.
Because by the time you get to a certain place, your parents know you can't survive. They're already planning how you can walk to Libya and cross in a rowboat and risk your life so you can get to the West, so you can make it. As long as we keep thinking that, as long as our hopes always lie in the West, please let me erase the word. You are not independent. You are independent on paper. You are independent on paper, because right now, they say that the borrower is servant to the lender. Let's tell the truth.
Yes.
The who rules us, IMF rules us.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now listen.
Okay. Who rules us? America tells us what values we ought to have in the education for our children in order to give us kobo. to fix our nation.
Let me share this with you. I was having a conversation today with a friend of mine and a partner also in business, and someone shared something on one of our groups. I said, "Oh, America is trying to invest something with us in Africa, in our states, and things like that." I said, "Look, listen to me." I said, "We don't need that investment. America is the one that needs it. They're making us look like we need them, but they're just trying to make sure that they have their hold on whatever we're doing there, and that is why they're giving you this penny. So don't get carried away." I shared with a group, and I was telling them, I said, "Look, if we don't rise up together and go solve the problems in Africa, and or rather, the moment we rise up and begin to solve the problem in Africa, I'm telling you, all of you are going to be uncomfortable in the West." Because you find out that it is the dysfunction in Africa that makes you comfortable in the West. The moment it's solved over there, this place you're going to run out of place.
What is worrying me right now is I see African leaders switch from America to China.
Oh yeah.
Nobody has our interest at heart.
No.
It's every country associates. I think it was our mentor who said this, that politicians have only interests.
Yes.
What interest do they have in you? What do you have? You know, that will benefit them. And so you're not independent. They're just pulling our strings. And I worry that they're coming with Trojan horses.
Yep.
Let's fix some roads for you. Okay? Mm-hmm. And then we let you have access to our mining rights, our electricity rights. You understand what I'm saying? So going back to it, it's about what kind of leadership, and it's not too late. I want to say it's not too late. Problem solving comes when you first diagnose what your problem is accurately. Our challenge is this: our governments are in hot soup. They cannot solve. They cannot begin to dream when we are hungry today. Number one, they cannot dream about the future. No, we are not. We as a people are not interested in the future. We are belly hurting right now. Feed us now. It's gonna take pain. It's gonna take sacrifice.
That's true.
It's gonna take austerity. And I'm throwing this back to the people. Are we prepared? There is no nation that can be transformed without the cooperation of the people. It's not about our political leaders. It's without the cooperation. And are the people ready for austerity? Okay. Number two, we need politicians also who move into the neighborhood. You know, I'm a reverend, so let me say this. John 1 talks about Jesus, and he says, the word became flesh and dwelt among men. Another translation says, he moved into the neighborhood. Today we have politicians who have no compassion or no real assessment of how bad things are, because we're so far removed. So it's not just politicians. I hate it when it's just politicians, because I don't think politicians are the only one who make for the nation. I think public leadership, our banking systems, you know, our whole education, our health system, every bit of our infrastructure, all of those leaders are so far removed from the reality of poverty, and tomorrow they can send their kids abroad. So they don't know how bad it is in our public schools, you know. So again, and yet
we had a situation in Nigeria. Let me use Nigeria as an example. Schools were closed for a whole year, and no politician, nobody said anything, because all the people that could say anything, all their kids were not there.
Yes, their kids are abroad. Preachers' kids are abroad.
Yep,
so who's going to fight for the people? Okay. And so what happens is we forget that these same politicians also, and the reason I'm so passionate and we're so passionate about not leaving it to political officers is that all of the political officers and public officers came from amongst us.
Yes, indeed.
So if we don't change the thinking from base level, we're going to just keep producing much more. They will go with good intent, but what we have put inside of them is what the output they are going to make. So from now, from kindergarten, let's give ourselves 20 years and let's start afresh with a nation and a continent that knows it's going to pinch us.
Okay. All right. Okay. Ambassador Yemi, give us your closing remarks and prescribe one or two things for us as well. Fantastic points from Reverend Celia.
Thank you so much. I mean, there's so much that we've said, and we could spend a few more hours unpacking it. But I think one of the things that I would say is this. Our people need to come to a place where we demand a kind of leadership that does not anchor on superficial differences. So, for instance, using Nigeria as an example, we have political leaders that have superficial differences in their political programs. But the truth of the matter is this: the vision that would be required to take the nation forward will take everybody's collective effort. So we need to insist that all these differences, once the electioneering season is over, forget that nonsense, and now look at how do we work together for the benefit of the nation. Whatever those superficial ideas are about what separates one party from another. Even I had an example, a few years ago, where I wanted to work with some schools in a state in Nigeria, and I invited them to come together so that we can twin them with educational institutions in the UK, so they can actually benefit from that cross-pollination of ideas. The challenge was, for as long as this group was not the one who was going to be in charge, they were not prepared to work together, even though it would be collectively beneficial for all of them as a group. And so we need to insist as a people that, look, we need to bury all the superficial differences and be prepared to work together. As Reverend Celia has said, as you have said, time and time again, it will take you and I working together as a people, knowing that there's a price to pay. You cannot negotiate the price of the development that we say we desire.
Someone just commented about that as well.
To pay the price.
Yeah, someone just commented and said there's a sacrifice that for all this, it will take a lot of commitment and a lot of sacrifice. That sometimes I know people are too lazy or too cowardly to want to get involved with. And that is why we continue to be in the same situation that we're in, because people are lazy, mentally lazy, physically lazy, spiritually lazy as well. Because it will require a lot of work from every one of us, not just from a sector field.
I agree that sacrifice needs to be done. It's just that somebody else needs to do the sacrifice.
Which is what Reverend Celia was saying, that look, we would need to go through austere times. There will be austerity. But you see, once there's austerity, it's like everybody complains like, no, everything's gone bad. No, we're going through birth pains right now. We're going, and we will have to, for us to deliver, we will have to go through those pains. But people don't want to go through any pain at all. They don't want to go through any kind of pain. And that way we will never leave the same level. And while we're doing nothing, or we're busy just going around in circles, other people are coming in the place and just literally raiding us in the name of
looting us.
Looting us. Look, wow, this has been.
Can I add one bit that has not been addressed, please?
Please add.
Women. We have
to say that again.
Women. We have to encourage women as leaders.
Oh my!
After 15 years of genocide, after years and years of genocide, 15 years of genocide, Rwanda is making it. They have a robust economy and they model clean, orderly nation, very disciplined.
Yes. Oh yes.
I want to throw a question in. Could it perhaps be because it's the first country in history to break the halfway mark of having 56% of women making up its lower house of parliament?
Well, it's debatable. It's something that we can discuss. And I'll throw it in the open. Let's have a conversation over it. Women in leadership.
They say that in any business, if you have a business that includes women on the board of directors, that company is hardly likely to go bankrupt.
Well, let me give you 1 or 2 points I also picked up over the years, especially during the COVID period, and this analysis was done. The countries that were led by women, either it's circumstantial, either it was I don't know. Well, all the countries led who had women president had the least number of calamities and deaths during COVID. And they said it was just down to the way they cared for the people and the decisions they made, which some people might think, well, it's more feminine. Well, others made those decisions later, but very late. Those women make those decisions quickly, and they had the least of those fatalities.
So we need the both kind of leadership, male and female gender leadership, because we see things differently, we assess things differently. So we need that teamwork. And I brought this in because if Africa is going to be whole, Africa needs to look at women differently and respect. Again, our very traditions disrespect women. So we're an addendum. I am fully convinced until we adjust some of our cultural beliefs and values, we will struggle. We will struggle.
You see, there's a whole lot, and you mentioned culture. Culture is so mixed up sometimes, and we mix it. We're so confused with it that it affects everything we do. Because sometimes people tend to think because you're a woman, you can't do certain things, and that's just ignorance, because we don't really understand the creative essence or the creative purpose of the male gender and the female gender, and the purpose within certain contexts. So sometimes we mix the context of a family to the context of just look. It did not say a woman is inferior to the man. In fact, when I said this somewhere, I think I was in Zimbabwe, and I was teaching them on this, and I said a man and a woman are equal but different. That equal they didn't want to hear, and it took me a whole week really hammering the mindset for them to really understand it. And eventually, the first statement they heard, I could see the expression go, hey, before you throw stones, I'll explain to you. And they understood eventually, and they said, but nobody ever taught us this. I said, now you know. And change the way you do things. And that has really damaged a whole lot of things. Even still, anytime we see a woman in position of power, it's like the woman is always having to prove themselves. In England till now, there's still those debates about women in leadership get paid less than men in leadership in the corporate world. And that issue is still ongoing. They're still pushing hard in those areas. So
it's a mindset issue.
Yeah, it's a
so
we're going to bring this into a conversation.
Sorry.
We're going to have a conversation on women in leadership.
You have to. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm going to throw that out there. Okay. Wow. Listen, this has been a fantastic night. This has been a whole lot, because really, when we started, we said we want solutions. We know we have a problem. We are admitting on behalf of those who will not admit that we have a deficiency. Okay, so don't let us talk about the deficiency, but what can we do? What's the impact of this deficiency? Because we got to know there's a problem, and how we're going to fix it as well. And you've brought in quite a number of fixes, a whole chunk of them that I'm going to throw out, especially in the media waves, so that as many people can pick this up, and alongside other people that are trying a whole lot of things out there. And I believe that our developing nations, there's hope, especially if we're willing to learn, and also if all of us as a collective will pay the price, will take the responsibility. I tell people, I said, don't get so comfortable in the West, because now we have this syndrome. For example, in Nigeria, it's called the jackpot syndrome. I know you must have had that time. And it's like there's a mass movement, everywhere, from Zimbabwe to Ghana there's a mass. I think Ghana slowed down, really. And that's because there's been a whole lot of shift at home as well. But other areas, there's been a massive movement to the West. And I'm thinking, I'm saying, I'm not sure you're coming in the right direction. There should be a massive movement back to the developing and go change things there, because the West is really, thriving on the dysfunction out there. And the more dysfunctional we are, the stronger the West becomes. The more we begin to fix our developing nations, then the West is going to succumb a whole lot of things to us. And I think that is one thought we got to leave to the people, that we all have a role to play. We all need to take responsibility from teaching our sons and our daughters to be responsible, from home, have that sense of responsibility in everything that you do, not thinking somebody is going to solve it for them as well. Like a lot of people think that politicians are going to solve their problem. Regarding the cocoa, I'm telling you, I just led an initiative in Nigeria right now as we speak on cocoa to get a whole group from diaspora to grow cocoa. And some people are quickly coming in, and America wants to. I say America is not going to help us. We don't need their help. They need our help. They need our chocolate. They need our cocoa. So anybody wants to come and build a factory and bring the money to come and build a factory. We give you the cocoa and we export the chocolate out. That should be the thinking. Don't come back and sell the same like
we got lots of corn.
Yes, yeah, we got lots of. Oh my God! I'm telling you, we import everything, and we plant the raw material. We never develop.
A lazy man never roasts what he took in hunting. The Bible says, and that word lazy is not manual lazy; that's mental laziness. We don't know how to roast what we have taken in hunting. We will eat the whole pig.
Yes, and
not maximize the pig.
We're not maximizing. We're not producing anything. And once you're only consuming, when Dr. Miles was sharing that word with us, he said, consume. The word consume is actually the same concept for poverty. When you only consume and consume, you grow poor. So we consume everything. In the context of Africa, we consume so much and we produce nothing. And that makes us poor, And I think this is where all of us needs to be part of the change that's coming. Our time is gone. Today we trained 1 hour into this program and it just go like that. And like Ambassador Yemi was saying, that we could be here for hours playing them. But however, this has been value added. This has been so productive. I want to say a big thank you to you, Reverend Celia. Such a great honor. Being able to plug into your time. I know. This is just grace. Thank you so much. And we're really honored for having you. Ambassador Yemi, thank you so much. The Leadership Catalyst. What a great honor to have you back as well. And I know there's going to be a lot of people watching this broadcast all through the week. The last 2 weeks, people have been viewing your broadcast on leadership conversation has been fantastic. And also, please, we want to encourage everyone as well. Please, for those who have not been able to join us today, when you're going to watch this broadcast as well, please leave a comment and also subscribe. Click the notification bell so that you get an alert anytime you join us as well. We are all of us on this platform today. We're all part of the Itwala Group, International Third World Leadership Association, founded by Dr. Miles Monroe. For you to know more about what our organization really stands for, what we do, listen to this clip, and we look forward to having you next week back in the same channel, same time as well. God bless you and have a nice evening.
Hi, my name is Miles Monroe Jr., and I'm the chairman of the board for the International Third World Leaders Association. Our organization was birthed to respond to and address the critical need for quality, effective leadership development and training in the emerging developing nations.
Our vision is to establish a global network of leaders from every discipline,
committed to the highest standards of excellence in leadership training, personal development,
mutual accountability, and fraternal support, implementing relevant and innovative leadership philosophy based on time-tested precepts, principles, and values.
Our mission is to influence the destiny of developing third world nations through leadership training,
personal development, supportive relationships, and global networking.
Our purpose is to provide transformational solutions
in response to the dynamic leadership needs of the emerging third world developing nations.
Our goal is to cultivate leadership commitment
to produce leaders
dedicated to the empowerment of their people,
the progressive well-being of their citizens,
and the betterment of their nation.
The strategic approach captured in the slogan coined by our founder, Dr. Miles Monroe,
was transforming followers into leaders and leaders into agents of change. Our focus is national development through transformational leadership,
transforming nations, communities from the inside out.
Join us in ushering in this new era of our organization.
We are tasked with carrying this vision forward.
And we are devoted to ensuring that we leave an unwavering legacy.
The organization that produces effective leaders
with global reach and influence.